Hey guys, happy Tuesday. Yes, well, 2 days into the week already. Happy day, and happy that you are joining us on another edition of the Fox 5 Live Zone. I'm your host, Guy Lambert. Coming up on the show today, the latest with regard to the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. The ball now in Putin's court. Will he slam dunk it? We'll have to wait and see. The latest on the crime crackdown by President Trump. Several D.C. residents now crying foul. And it's the movie that's all the rage on Tubi. I'm Supposed to Be Here. You're going to not only meet the cast, but the filmmaker right here on the Live Zone. All that and more coming up in the show. But first, how about we talk weather, shall we? With this guy, Tucker Barnes, joining us right here on the LZ. What's up, my friend?
Hey, good to see you.
Same here.
Yeah. What do you think of the weather? You like an early fall preview?
It's different. It's a little, it was a little dreary today for the most part.
No, it still is dreary.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the story for the afternoon. So we'll hop right into the weather together, and what you see is what you get for the morning, the noon hour, and later this afternoon tonight.
Okay.
A lot of overcast skies, a lot of cool temps. I will say this, it is a big change up and a very fall-like feel out there early this morning and during the midday hours, and that will continue for the next couple days. East-northeast wind at 13. We're getting our winds off the ocean, Guy, and that is pumping in cooler air for the next couple of days. In fact, this entire week, our temperatures are going to be below normal. You ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
Low to mid 70s this afternoon, and maybe a couple sprinkles or showers. But our average high temperature this time in August is 88 degrees, so we're well below average, almost 15 degrees below average. Been raining down at the beaches first half of the day. Still some shower activity lingering down there, and you can see the clouds just parked across the region. They're not going anywhere today. It's what we call CAD, cold air damming.
Wow, that's new. Okay.
Yep, and so winds off the ocean, high pressure up north of Maine, and it's just pushing cool maritime airflow into the mid-Atlantic, and this is the result. Cloud cover, cool temperatures, and a couple of showers, a little drizzle out there.
Okay.
All right, so we do it again for another day. Low to mid 70s later today. I know what you're thinking. Well, I don't even care if you're thinking about it or not. That's Hurricane Aaron, and latest is it's actually lost some of its intensity the last 24 hours. Winds are now 110. It's a Category 2 hurricane. If you look on the northerly side of it, see the gray rather than the bright colors?
Yeah.
That is what we call wind shear. So what's happening is the dry air is working into the system, and that's weakening the system for the time being.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a great thing. So it's no complaints there, but it's losing a lot of its structural integrity. And we'll see if it's able to regain strength, but the official forecast keeps it at a Category 2 for the rest of today. It will make its closest pass to our region early Thursday morning during Thursday afternoon. And at that time, we will have gusty winds out at the beaches, probably 40 to 50 miles an hour, and pretty good storm surge. We'll have several cycles of high tides along the bay and up the Potomac where we may have some flooding issues. So we'll have to watch that. But as far as direct impacts, we may get a little breezy around here Thursday afternoon as the storm passes, but we will not get any rain or any dangerous tropical weather locally. The beaches will get some tropical storm conditions late Wednesday into the day on Thursday. Behind the hurricane, it gets beautiful Friday and Saturday, some very, very nice August weather. And it looks dry through most of the weekend there, maybe a late day storm on Sunday.
It amazes me how far out to sea the hurricane is, and yet we're still feeling the effects of it.
It's amazing. Yeah, I mean, these guys are, they're global beasts for a reason.
Sheesh. All right. Tucker Barnes with all things weather right here in the Live Zone. Thanks, Tucker. Hey, guys, if you haven't already done so, make sure you download the Fox Local app. That way you can take that forecast with you on the go. Well, some of the stories we're following this hour, a cargo ship explodes and catches fire in the river near the site of the Key Bridge collapse. Overnight, all 22 crew members were accounted for it. Thankfully, no one was injured in that explosion. Fire officials say the underdeck caught fire, sending heavy smoke into the air before the fire was quickly put out. This afternoon, an investigation continues. Well, we now have a date for the first and possibly only debate in the Virginia race for governor. Both camps agreeing to October 9th in Norfolk after months of back and forth. This is the first Virginia governor's race between two female candidates, former Democratic Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger versus Republican Virginia Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl Sears. All eyes will be watching to see how Virginia, a purple state, votes ahead of the midterm elections. Cardinal News reports both campaigns were also invited to a September debate in Bristol, but there's no confirmation yet on whether or not that will happen. Well, obviously, a lot happening in the world of politics with regard to, well, Ukraine and Russia. We're going to get more on that in just a second. But first, let's take a look into the Sunshine State of Florida, where officials there discussing a key component surrounding education in school choice. We'll take a quick look in.
As commissioner, I'm committed to ensuring that every Florida student, regardless of background, receives a high-quality education that is safe, that is rigorous, and is free from political ideology. Working together with the governor and the attorney general, we will continue to raise the bar for Florida education. Thank you, and God bless.
Governor DeSantis, Attorney General Uthmeier, Commissioner Kamoutsas, and our esteemed elected officials and guests.
Yet again, officials there discussing all things surrounding education and school choice, a major topic in that state and something we will obviously continue to follow right here on the Live Zone. Switching gears to politics, overnight President Trump pushed for a meeting between Ukrainian President Zelenskyy and Russian President Vladimir Putin. Now, this comes just hours after President Trump met with the Ukrainian and European leaders. Meanwhile, U.S. State's Attorney Pam Bondi, well, now speaking out regarding the president's federal takeover of the MPD. According to Bondi, since the mission began, there have been a total of 465 arrests and 58 guns seized as of today. Joining us now to discuss this and so much more is Madeline Somerville, political strategist and host of Maddie's Hot Takes back here on the Live Zone. Always good to see you, Madeline. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks so much, Guy.
All right, let's jump into it, Madeline. Let's begin right here at home where President Trump, well, a lot of folks still talking about this crackdown on crime. You just heard me make mention of the numbers. We now know that an additional, well, let's say several hundred National Guard troops are now on their way to the nation's capital. Many of them will be armed but will not be able to make arrests. Many are stating that they are creating fear and anxiety. Your take on this, Madeline?
That's right, Guy. The fear and anxiety is actually a huge component of this because there are different ways for judges to be able to tell whether or not the rule of mixing military has been violated. So the general rule here is called posse comitatus. And what that means is it's a super old rule, but it basically means that you can't mix civilian military with state or federal military. That's under the executive branch. Interestingly, right, I didn't know this until I researched it. ICE is a civilian force. It's not considered a part of the executive branch. So there's been a mixing here, even if it's with immigration arrests or with regular crime in DC. You're not allowed to do it. And it's because you don't want a federal takeover of states if you're a proponent of smaller government, a proponent of states' rights, right? And if it's a president you don't like in the future, even if you like this one, you don't want him to take over your state. So here, I think this is really branching out of executive power in a way that we expected, because we saw this under Project 2025. We saw this in the Butterfly Revolution. This is something we expected. I didn't expect it so soon. I would love if crime in DC would go down, of course, but this to me is kind of a scary way to do it.
Yeah, we're going to take a deep dive into this actual topic later on in the show, but staying in the realm of the crime crackdown, we know that President Trump right here in the nation's capital wants to charge 14-year-olds as adults. The district's current laws do not allow juvenile offenders younger than 15 to be prosecuted as adults in the vast majority of cases. However, offenders under 18 can still end up in the adult justice system in one of two ways. I'm hoping you can expand on that, Madeline.
Yeah, and I can expand on it from personal experience, actually. So before I even went to law school, I did this program called Teen Court. And it was a program for kids like me who wanted to go to law school and for first and second time juvenile offenders who had committed crimes that weren't severe. But they would get in trouble for like fighting at school or shoplifting, and they would go to a diversion program instead, where we would have like a little trial, and there would be like a local lawyer who would be the judge, and they would get sentenced to things like community service. When Judge Janine Pirro, or I guess Attorney Janine Pirro now, comes out and talks about these diversion programs, she makes it sound like the recidivism rates aren't very high, but they are. they're declining tremendously. And it helps kids so much to be able to have these diversion programs. So charging them rather than letting them get into the system and just keep repeating in that revolving tour, keep going, right? When they're a young kid, getting them into the prison system and then making them, and it inevitably ends up making them stay there, right? Rather than doing that, you send them to a diversion program. So I don't really know if what we've done is target the actual problem because we haven't been honest about the recidivism rates here.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how all of that plays out, specifically right here in the nation's capital. Let's move to the international stage, where President Trump says he thinks that a meeting between Zelenskyy and Putin will get underway. Now, should that meeting occur, President Trump will then sit down with both leaders and hopefully they can come to an agreement. It's the million-dollar question, Madeline. You think this is going to happen?
So let's zoom out for 1 second and look at the bigger picture, because I think that the way that Russian media and Ukraine media and media in in European countries have been framing this is different than what we're hearing here. So let's get this straight. Russia believes that the US is actually the aggressor with Ukraine, that Ukraine is falling under Western influence. And Russia views itself as liberating or saving Ukraine from that liberal Western influence. Now, since Trump and Vance have taken over, right, that liberal influence has kind of gone out the window. And so there is potential for an alliance between Russia and the United States in that their values are the same. And so I think what's happened here, right, is that with the meeting with Putin, that we've seen with Trump, a slight alliance, right, welcoming him sort of submissively. And look, if it works, it works. In a way that sort of reinforces that alliance. But then with all the NATO partners that we saw come to try to advocate for Ukraine, it's like, remember, we're all in this together on this side, protecting their peace. So I'm hoping that Trump isn't saying one thing and then doing another, right? Playing each side in a way that is not going to end up working. But if it does, I will happily eat my words.
Yeah, I think we are all very optimistic with regard to what can happen. Madeline Somerville, political strategist, joining us right here on the Live Zone. You're going to join us yet again in the 1 o'clock hour as we break down more political topics. Well, if you ask President Trump, he says he sort of, quote, sort of set up a meeting between Ukrainian President Zelenskyy and Russian President Putin. Nevertheless, he says they have to call the shots. The Kremlin, meanwhile, reiterated its refusal to comment to a meeting, but stopped short of ruling out further talks. Joining us now to discuss this and so much more is Mr. John Deaton, U.S. Marine veteran, trial attorney, and author, and yet again kind enough to join us right here on the Live Zone. Mr. Deaton, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you.
But of course, sir, first and foremost, your response with regard to what unfolded yesterday. We saw the Ukrainian President Zelenskyy sitting down with President Trump, a number of European leaders, 7 in all, to which the president then stating that it looks like perhaps there could be a deal on the table.
Yeah, certainly. Listen, there's a picture of all those European leaders sitting in the hallway, almost reminiscent of children waiting to see the principal. I think the optics President Trump loves. And I think he's sincere in wanting to obviously negotiate a deal. I mean, until Zelenskyy and Putin get in the room with Trump, I think that it's all theoretical, but certainly those European leaders, they're vested. You know, they don't want a prolonged war, and they certainly don't want to witness further Russian aggression. So there's a lot of interested parties.
You know what's really interesting, Mr. Deaton, is that if you look at it, the Trump stance, if you will, somewhat shifted following his sit down with Vladimir Putin. In your mind, what caused that?
Well, I think that President Trump might have been a little surprised by Putin's kind of firm stance. You know, President Trump was calling for a ceasefire. That's usually what happens, right? The first thing you do when you're starting to talk peace is you agree to at least a temporary ceasefire, put the guns down, stop killing everybody. And Putin said no, that he's not interested in a ceasefire. And the reason is Putin is actually has the advantage on the battlefield right now. It's a slow progress, but it's a progress. And it's Zelenskyy who's actually calling for a ceasefire. And so Putin understands leverage, just like President Trump. He has the battlefield leverage right now, and he's not willing to give it up.
Well, we all know that President Trump and the European leaders yesterday discussed a number of things, among them security guarantees for Ukraine, but not redrawing territory. The question to you, sir, is will this happen and does this need to happen?
Well, listen, I think that NATO membership is off the table. President Trump posted on social media that NATO membership was off the table. And he also said that both sides are going to have to give some kind of concessions. You know, Zelensky doesn't want to give any land up, but Crimea, that was actually annexed in 2014 under Barack Obama. I think that's off the table. The question is, right now, Russia has 20% of the land territory of Ukraine. What is Putin willing to give back to Ukraine and leave control? And until we get those answers, I think we're just spinning.
Yeah, I got to tell you, it's truly interesting to see how all of this is unfolding. And what is also very interesting is what President Trump had to say about the future with regard to this potential deal that could be struck. We know that the president stated that this will really all boil down to who is in the Oval Office. What am I getting to? Will Putin live up to what he says if indeed they do strike a deal? Your response to that?
Yeah, I think that at some point, President Trump is going to see which party is being the one that is being too stubborn to make a deal. And if that's Putin, I think that President Trump will then engage in a much more aggressive strategy, more economic sanctions, stronger sanctions that have been done before, also possibly sanctioning other countries who buy Russian oil. But on the flip side, if Zelensky is the one who refuses to give up or he demands, you know, that Crimea be given back and Trump sees him as the one that is being the problem as far as getting a peace deal, then I think we could see that unity, Western unity with Ukraine and the U.S. kind of fall even more.
Yeah, John, we'll end with this, and I cannot believe this happens to be the last question and or topic that I will discuss with you. And that is, we know that overnight, Russia carried out drone attacks on central Ukraine. Here we are talking about peace, but yet again, the attacks still continue. Many are saying that this shows that Russian President Vladimir Putin is not serious.
Yeah, listen, I think that that was a show of absolute power. You know, when President Trump had Vladimir Putin in Alaska, you saw that the bombers fly overhead. That was a show of sort of American military might, I believe, from President Trump. And here on the talks of a peace deal, we have Putin, you know, engaging in even more aggressive tactics, not even limiting them to combatants, but attacking civilians. It was a pretty big statement that Putin has the leverage and he's not giving it up without some serious concessions.
Yet again, we shall all wait and see. We have been speaking with John Deaton, U.S. Marine veteran, trial attorney, and author. By the way, John, the title of your book?
Food Stamp Warrior.
Very good. And it's available, I would assume, at Amazon and or all bookstores?
It is. Thank you very much for asking.
No doubt. Yet again, Mr. Deaton, thank you for joining us right here on the Live Zone. All right, guys, we'll take our first break, and we'll be right back. All right, guys, welcome back to the Fox 5 Live Zone. Well, at least 5 Republican-led states have moved to deploy members of their National Guard forces right here to the nation's capital as part of the Trump administration's effort to overhaul policing here in D.C. Now, those members deployed may be armed, but they would not make arrests. This was a reversal from earlier in the week when officials said the deployed Guard members would not be armed at the request of local law enforcement partners. Joining us now to discuss this and so much more is Mr. Michael Letts. He is the founder, president, and CEO of Invest USA, a national grassroots nonprofit organization that is helping hundreds of communities provide thousands of bulletproof vests for their police forces. Michael, always good to see you, sir, and welcome back to the show.
Always a privilege to be with you. We thank you for the opportunity.
But of course, sir, you have made it your life's work to protect those who protect you and I.
And quite frankly, it's never been needed any more than it is now. You know, we're trying to make sure that we make it safe, not just in D.C. Yes, D.C. is a classic illustration of what we're attempting to do, but all across the country. The Constitution says in the preamble, it's to provide for the common defense. It's to make sure that Americans feel safe in the country in which they love. And that hasn't been happening lately. And quite frankly, it's time we reverse that. And it's a given right that we should all be excited about having a restoring of our constitutional right. Be able to go out to dinner at night, be able to go shopping, be able to spend time walking with the family and feel threatened in doing so.
And with that being said, sir, I'm curious, your thoughts on the federalization of the Metropolitan Police Department right here in D.C.
Well, it's a shame that we had to go to that point, but you know, we've been warning, and it's not just D.C., but we've been warning officials all across the country that either you can't or won't, a lot of times it's won't, provide the necessary protection and defense for our citizens, then we will. And that is what it came to in D.C. We brought in 250 additional federal law enforcement officers, basically telling them to get out of your chair, push it into your desk, throw your badge over your neck, put your sidearm on, and get out there and start getting on the streets. We also figured that we would need additional presence and brought in 850 National Guard members, you know, some from my home state, South Carolina, 200 from South Carolina, to make sure that we gave a presence to let the criminal element know that there's a difference now. You want to commit crimes in our beloved national capital, you're going to be held accountable for it. And quite frankly, it's working. We've had over 400 arrests. Many arms have been taken off the streets. And there was a concern that the criminal element would just hide for 30 days and then come back once all this was undone and left, because the intent is certainly not militarization of our law enforcement. It's only a gap to help partner till we can get things under control and in order. But that's not going to be the case because we're taking them off the streets. The illegal immigrant criminals, we're deporting back to their origin, or country of origin. The criminals who are American citizens are going to be going to jail. And we're taking a look at another big problem, and this is important to the entire country, Guy. And that is, what are we going to start doing with our young people who have decided that the in thing to do is to rove around in gangs, beat up innocent people that are walking on the streets, film it, and see who can get their first 15 seconds of fame. That's got to end all across the country, not just in D.C. And so we're taking a look at those laws that are dealing with juvenile justice. You know, just because you're 14 to 18 doesn't mean that you shouldn't be held accountable. Our position is, if you're smart enough or you're able to commit the crime, you should be able to do the time.
Michael, out of curiosity, you are, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you are a former police officer. And so with that being said, I'm curious, where do you think, or did they being the Metropolitan Police Department, go wrong? When did that happen, and did it happen?
Let's work our way backwards. It did happen, and it happened from the standpoint we began to decide to use law enforcement for social experimentation, social policy. There was the issue that we need to rehabilitate folks. So let's do what we can to be easy on them when they commit a crime. Let's give them a second chance, especially our young people. We don't want to destroy their whole future, which all that sounds great. But here's the problem, Guy. When you don't hold people accountable, instead of giving them a second chance, what it does is it reinforces in their mind that crime pays. And that if we do what we need to do to commit crimes, we can enrich ourselves and really not suffer any consequences for it. Once that spreads, it becomes epidemic. And that's where you get to where violent crime starts skyrocketing, burglaries, robberies, rapes, etc. And that's when America feels unsafe. And that is when you begin to go into anarchy. And we're going to make sure we don't get there. And that's why those policies Not, I want to make it very clear, it's not our law enforcement officers. These are brave men and women that put their lives on the line, many of them without the necessary equipment to protect themselves, willing to do it anyway, to make sure that they can serve their communities. It's the policies of our elected officials who think that they can use government resources to somehow create a utopia of rehabilitating people when they're sadly mistaken and misguided, and we suffer the consequences because of it.
As you and I both stated, we have seen hundreds of arrests, more than 400, a little under 100 guns, if I'm correct, illegal guns that have now been confiscated and taken off the streets. Then there's the flip side of this, Michael, and that happens to be the number of restaurant owners who in Washington, D.C. are now claiming that as a result of the federal takeover of the Metropolitan Police Department, folks are somewhat fearful and are suffering from anxiety. The numbers show there that they did not show up this weekend. Furthermore, there have been others that have expressed concern with regard to several, let's say, officials, law enforcement officials, wearing masks and or not producing a badge during a stop. Your response to that?
Well, let's take again, in segments here, talking about a badge, a mask, and their badge. Their badge should be visible. Okay, that should go without question. And if there's cases where that's not being done, that needs to be reported to the jurisdictional officers in charge. Masks are another matter. Because of the fact that we are doxing people, we're putting their families at risk. Why should an officer's family have to be at risk for him just trying to do his job to support and to provide protection for the citizens of that area? It shouldn't be. But because of the fact that you have opposition that is so determined to destroy what we're attempting to do. And why is that? Let's just get to the chase here. There's a liberal element there that doesn't want this program to succeed. Because if it succeeds, what was one of the main things that's always been involved in every election that we can think of? People want to feel safe. And if they don't feel safe, then they're concerned in how the election rollouts come about. And so if you provide safety, you're more inclined to support the people that are providing it. So there's a reason for them wanting to make sure these programs do not succeed. And then when that comes to the second issue, let's talk about the restaurant owners. I dispute those facts. I think, quite frankly, that majority of people want to go out now, feel more comfortable going out to restaurants than before. But I feel like there's a very large segment that support this whole ideology of wanting to make sure that this administration, anything they do, wouldn't make any difference what we said. It's got to be bad because they want to make sure this administration falls. And that's sad that we've got to the point in this country we don't care about the American people. We care about politics instead. Those days have got to end.
Yeah, I think we can all say, no matter what side of the fence you sit on, no one wants crime, and no one wants to have to deal with that. And to your point, everyone wants to go to dinner and be able to feel safe while doing so. We'll end with this, Michael, and that is, obviously, as the president made mention, this is somewhat the test city to do all of this. Do you expect this to roll out in other cities as well?
No question. Chicago's begging for it right now. New York City, they're not begging, but New York is on the edge, realizing that if they don't do something, they're going to fall as well. Detroit, LA, Portland, Seattle. We can name them a list longer than we have time on the air. It's time that once this begins to take off like we expect it to, and it already has, I think you're going to see a big difference in the criminal element across the country.
Yet again, Mr. Michael Letts, founder, president, and CEO of Invest USA, kind enough to join us right here on the Live Zone. Truly appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you. God bless you, and God bless America.
You bet. All right, folks, we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back.
baby. No. Freedom. It's okay. Baby. It's okay. It's okay. We're fine.
The Amish market opens up at 2.
You see it right there on your TV screen. I'm supposed to walk this way. Yes, it's the movie that's all the rage, and obviously it's streaming on none other than Tubi because any and everybody is talking about it. A film by Randall Lawrence that follows an African-American father's journey to pass on the family business to his son while navigating the emotional complexities of generational wealth. Joining us to discuss it is, don't let me tell it, we got the guys here. None other than Randall Lawrence, cast members Brad Eaton and Derek Lamar. Welcome, guys, to the Fox 5 Live Zone. What's up, my people?
It's good to be here.
Great,
Good to be here.
Thank you.
I was looking at that trailer like, oh man, I got to see that.
I wonder why. This is just so cool. You know, when I think about us, and when I say us folks that look like you and I, so many times with regard to generational wealth, that's not a discussion. We sweep it under the rug.
Absolutely.
You don't talk about it.
Yeah.
What was it that, what was it and why did you want to address just that?
So I wanted to do that because, just as you said, we never talk about it. We never talk about generational wealth. We never talk about mental health, us as African Americans. So I thought it was a cool topic to talk about. A needed topic to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with that being said, I mean, obviously you do it, but then you got to put pen to paper. You got to put thoughts in it. I mean, we're taking a look at it right now at the flyer, if you will, with regard to all things surrounding the movie.
Yes.
And it just makes me feel comfortable. It makes me recognize that yet again, this is something that has to be said. At any point while you were putting this all together, did you say, you know what, this is the right thing to do?
Oh, I felt it. Yeah, I knew it was needed for me. I was kind of, I'm not going to say tired, but I was tired of looking at, I am going to say tired, I was tired of looking at us being portrayed as killers, talking about foolishness that doesn't really matter, leaving out the things that really matter. We all go through mental health difficulties somewhere in your family, so I felt that it was needed. My mom is going through Alzheimer's right now, so yeah, I felt that it was truly needed.
Yeah,
absolutely.
To show us in a different manner.
Absolutely.
Well, you're showing it in a major way. It's so funny. Folks say you haven't made it unless you're on Tubi.
It is. Mama, I made it.
You all have made it in a major way. And speaking of making it, I just love the story about each and every one of you. Brad, I'm just thinking about how you started out with regard to the theater and then how you move on to doing something like this. Can you talk about the difference with regard to both?
Well, one thing about theater is when you're on stage, you got to be on point. No second takes.
Yeah. Well, who are you telling?
Yeah, so with film, you know, you get to do the different takes. And live theater, you get to feel that immediate feedback because the audience is there. And every night is different because every audience is different.
I always say if you're transitioning from theater to film, it's a lot easier.
Oh, absolutely.
To have that knowledge of theater and transitioning to film, it's a lot easier. Theater is hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's extremely
But it's
hard.
great training.
It's great training.
It is. It is. And I say to all of my people out there, how do you become an actor? Just go do community theater. Just get started. You know, do something because it's a lot of fun. You meet a lot of great people. You're playing different characters. It's a great art.
Yeah.
So just go out here and do it. You know?
Just do it. Just do it.
And don't forget to put the Nike check on it while you do it. You play a father. And I just think it's.
I play the son.
Oh, the son.
Right.
Okay.
Son.
I get, you know,
Brad plays the son.
like they said, you only get one take on this. But with that being said, at what point for you were you able to relate what's going on in the movie with your life as well?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Brad is such an amazing actor, and we instantly had that chemistry.
Yeah.
And Randall wrote such a great story that, you know, as an actor, you're able to pull some of your own personal experiences in. I lost my father at 21, you know, but I cherished those 21 years I had. So it was a connection that, you know, that I had with my father, that Brad said some of the things that Randall wrote. So it was amazing. It was full circle that Randall wrote things that my father said and Brad delivering it to me. So I just channeled my life essentially for that. So it's a great story. It's a great family story. But when I read that script, I just got so excited because, you know, it's like, you know, every son just loves their dad.
I truly tried to write everyday life cycles that we truly go through
Yeah.
that people never talk
I think
about.
everyone on
they're
that
scared.
set had something that connected to their personal lives in that script.
Sure.
And that's
You
what
know?
actors do. They bring that. You bring that experience with you to these characters, even though you're playing a character, but the life experiences that you have, a little of that comes out in your performance.
Absolutely.
And that makes it more realistic, because when you're watching that screen, you gotta say, it's gotta be believable.
Yeah.
Gotta be
Yeah, I truly tried to make it a challenge for me and the actors as well, to give them something different. Because with me being a director, that's my job, to make sure you have something different, so you can deliver a skill like no other. You know?
Yeah.
Did I say that?
And so they say, oh no, you said it all
Right.
right.
And you did it.
They say the proof is in the pudding.
Right.
And so with that being said, I know what you all are saying, but what are the people saying? What's
What's the street saying?
yeah,
What's the street
I'm
saying?
just so curious.
So it's not a like thing. They actually love it because it's something that they can relate to, and it's something fresh and clean, and it's something different. Yeah. Again, we never get a chance to talk about mental health as men. We never do.
Yeah.
We never get a chance to talk about relationships that we have with our fathers. One, because we don't know how. We never get a chance to talk about generational wealth. One, because we weren't taught about generational wealth to a certain degree. But that movie gives you all of that. It gives you all of that.
Yeah. And for you?
Yeah, it's one of those things where you are playing someone and you can relate to them.
Yeah.
You are able to tap into some things that maybe you don't know about, but then the script is written so well, you're gonna bring it because you're working around great people. You've got a great director, you've got great cast members.
Sure.
And they're like you gotta bring your A game, because, you know, DMV has a lot of talent.
Come on now.
They got a
Come
lot
on now.
of talent, a
Let's
lot
get
of
through a lot of
talented
people to get this
writers,
role.
directors, DPs, and I've worked with some great people in some films, and you just got to make sure that you're ready, that you're out there and you're doing your best.
As we wrap up, one of the things that I loved is, as we were watching the trailer, you said, "Oh, I love that scene. That's one of my favorite scenes." How often does that happen? And what was it about that scene? Do tell, that made you say just that.
It's being on set and watching. You know, I was in so many scenes. You know, but I got a chance to see everyone do a lot of things. Just watching them pull that out, just watching them on set with you, you know, off camera, you know,
Watching it
being
all come
themselves,
together.
and then watching it come together, watching them transform, watching Brad transform into Eddie, watching her transform into my mom. And it just, I say it's one of those movies, watch it with your family. Watch it with your neighbors. Watch it with your girl. If you don't have a family or a girl, borrow one. Go see it. Check it. Watch it on your phones, your tablets, your computers. It just, Guy, I'm telling you, it's you're going to see something that you can relate to.
It's refreshing.
Yeah.
You're going to see something that you relate to. If it wasn't you, it's one of your buddies, somebody from school, a neighbor, something. So it just really touches. Everyone could watch this and take something away from it, you know. And I'm really proud of the work that we did. I'm proud of this guy. Proud of everybody that was on set and put this movie together. Oh, well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, brother.
Well, I guess we're all proud.
Yeah.
Because you all have done it all so well. Yet again,
thank you so much.
You see it right there on your TV screen. I'm supposed to walk this way. Don't check it out now. You check it out right now. Okay, right after this show. And you can do so on TV. And I would assume that this is not necessarily the last time we'll see something like this. Perhaps this is the first spark so that others will follow in your footsteps with regard to making sure that we actually address this.
I'm actually on my 5th movie. We have another movie coming out, Second Chance Redemption. It's talking about political issues in the Washington D.C. area that wasn't never addressed to us in a younger age, as far as the gentrification.
Come on now.
And again we have Second Chance Redemption, starring Fahim. What's Fahim's last name?
Abdul Salam.
And Fahim Abdul Salam. And we have another podcast. We have a podcast show that we're working on too, called with Dr. Lavelle, coming in soon.
Yeah. So that means you got to just keep on watching. Guys, truly appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for having us. I'm supposed to walk this way. Tune in on Tubi.
He put it best. We'll take a quick break, guys. This is the Fox 5 Live Zone. All right, guys, back here on the Fox 5 Live Zone. Obviously, what we do day in and day out is provide you with information. This next topic, I got to tell you, is something that you truly want to feast your eyes on. That's because it surrounds a study. And typically, when we talk studies, who do we talk to? This guy, Chip Lupo with Wallet Hub. Chip, always good to see you, my friend. Welcome back to the show.
Good to be with you, Guy. Happy Tuesday.
So, Chip, I got to ask you, so many times when it comes to, let's say, debt and things of that nature, so many folks say, you know what, it's not typically me, maybe it's somebody else, but it's really them. In this case, you all conducted a study where people are adding the most debt. Do tell.
Well, Guy, what we did, and you raised a good point, because everyone, when it comes to debt, before you criticize someone else's debt situation, always look in the mirror first, because debt is probably in your balance sheet also. But what we did, Guy, is that we compared 100 U.S. cities across two key dimensions when it comes to debt. The change in the average debt, which is key, and the average debt itself, the average amounts. And then we applied 6 metrics, and those range from our credit card, auto loan, personal loan debt. And we're talking about the change from the first quarter to second quarter of 2025. So it's a little 3-month window that we're looking at. Now, Washington, D.C. is in a pretty precarious spot here, Guy, because they're 7th. So they have the 7th highest debt in the country. Winston-Salem, Anchorage, Alaska, Laredo, Texas, Riverside, California, Boise, Idaho.
And so with that being said, Chip, I mean, obviously this is something that we should look at day in and day out, but I'm curious, has it changed throughout the years with regard to D.C.'s position?
It has changed somewhat. And this is what makes it pretty alarming, because we're talking about a 3-month window here. DC has been somewhat middle of the road, sort of, as far as debt's concerned. But it's the rate of change that's got to be concerning, because for the most part, DC is about average in the amount of debt per capita. The average car loan from the second quarter is just shy of $24,000. And the average personal loan debt is about a little over $11,400. That's a significant amount, but I mean, that's as far as the average debt, that's pretty average. It's just the rate where they've gone in the last 3 months to find themselves 7th overall.
Yeah, so yet again, the key being that we want to make sure that you keep your debt low, and if you're in need of assistance, make sure you reach out to do just that. Chip, I got about a minute left, and I want to make sure we touch on this last subject. In this case, we're talking the best and worst community colleges. All eyes, yet again, are on you to tell us if, well, right here in the good old DMV, we happen to find one of those community colleges.
Yeah, and once again, now this is the best and worst community colleges is a companion study to the states with the best community college systems. And Maryland is at the top of the list, again, as it was a year ago. Maryland has 8 community colleges, all ranking within the top 50 community colleges nationwide, led by Montgomery College at 17 and Prince George's Community College at 28. So 2 colleges right there in your backyard. Community colleges are in a in a pretty unique situation now because they're no longer a fallback, so to speak, but you can get some excellent training, and they're making it easier to transition to a 4-year college at a much cheaper cost.
Yeah, and that's the key word, cheaper. Yet again, we've been speaking with Chip Lupo with Wallet Hub. Always good to see you, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us right here on the Live Zone.
Good to be with you guys. I'll talk to you again soon.
All right. Well, folks, one of the big stories that folks have been talking about lately surrounds none other than the ketamine queen. I'm referring to Jasmine Sangha. She has agreed to plead guilty to 5 federal charges, including selling Friends actor Matthew Perry the dose of ketamine that led to his death back in October of 2023. She recently agreed to plead guilty to 1 count of maintaining a drug-involved premise, 3 counts of distribution of ketamine, and 1 count of distribution of ketamine resulting in the death or serious bodily injury, according to the Department of Justice. Joining us now to discuss all this and so much more is Marlo Greer, federal trial attorney and founder of Greer Law, back here on the Live Zone. Marlo, always good to see you. Welcome back to the show. And so, I'm sorry, go ahead, Marlo.
I am so sorry. I had hit that mute button just to make sure that I don't interrupt you. I'm an interrupting person. So there we go. Make sure we're all good now.
We're all good and good to see you. So obviously, this was a really big deal. I got to tell you, I was not too familiar with regard to all of this unfolding. What I have now learned is that apparently there happened to be 5 folks that are on the hot seat. She was the last one holding out.
Yes, and absolutely. Federal charges are quite a big deal. They come with what is called federal sentencing guidelines, and she could face up to 65 years. And I think the problem here with ketamine, and it started out as, a dance club drug of choice, which of course brings us to there's sexual assaults that occur with ketamine. But the other problem is that a lot of people believe that it's legal, and it does vary state to state, but typically it's legal when administered under the supervision of a physician. And that's not what occurred here. And there are all these ketamine clinics that are popping up all around that people say, hey, come do this. It has these dissociative effects. It helps with depression. It helps with pain. But, what we're going to do is we're going to put you in a room and we're going to administer this, and we'll be there with you for a couple minutes. And then you're kind of on your own, not kind of, you are on your own, as was Matthew Perry in this case, which has very serious consequences. The drug hasn't been completely studied, and especially when it's not administered by a medical professional. And the ketamine queen certainly was not a medical professional.
Yeah, and obviously all of this brought to light upon the death, I would argue, of Friends star Matthew Perry. You heard me make mention earlier, and you stated it as well. She now faces up to 65 years behind bars. But let's just be real, Marlo. A part of the reason to strike a plea deal is so that she will not serve all of that time.
That is absolutely true. The issue in federal court is that there are sentencing guidelines. So while you can recommend a low end of a sentencing guideline, you can't really wiggle your way out of that sentencing guideline. They can craft settlements so that the guilty plea is based on charges that come with a reduced sentence, because of course that's the whole reason to enter a plea agreement. And if there isn't any plea agreement, you wouldn't do it. You would go to trial. Everybody would go to trial, right? Why? Because there's no downside. So they can do a little bit, but there are guidelines that they do have to follow.
This yet again proves that the Department of Justice, they're not playing. They stated that they were going to get to the bottom of this, and well, the proof is in the pudding. They did just that.
Absolutely. And I'm really happy that they did. It's very important to bring light to this issue with ketamine. Like I said, its clinics are popping up everywhere. The efficacy of it has not been proven. And while there are some people that absolutely swear that it really helps them, especially with severe depression that cannot help anything else, we really do need to have a medical provider there and make sure that what you're doing, the dosage and everything else, is not going to hurt you. In this case, it did a lot more than hurt Mr. Perry.
Yeah, well, as they say, hopefully justice is now served, at least for the time being. Yet again.
For the time being.
Well said. Yet again, we've been speaking with Marlo Greer, federal trial attorney and founder of Greer Law. Always good to see you, Marlo. Thank you so much for being patient.
Thank you so much.
You bet. All right, guys, we'll take a quick break. Hey, on the flip side of that break, the Media Prince joins us for a little celebrity dish. He's up next right here on the Live Zone.
No, man, I'm gonna grow up be like you.
Don't grow up. It's a big mistake, I'm gonna tell you.
No, it's better than the alternative, bro.
I'm glad you made it this far.
I know. I can't believe I did it. You know, I'm not bad for 70.
Huh?
I'm not bad for 70.
Not at all, you look great. I'm 71.
I know, man. I know.
Not too bad.
Not bad for those old guys.
What you guys write?
You got socks over in there, right? You got socks over in
I know it.
What you guys dropping up? See right now? Oh, it lied. You jinxed it.
Oh, thank you.
No, I mean, this guy did it.
Brand new, too.
Oh. Oh, boy.
I'll be
I'm shooting for him.
Who's pulled today? Rodney, you pulled today?
Yeah, that's what they say.
What do they say?
No. I don't want to say it out loud because the microphone's open.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You need to embrace what you fear, young Jedi.
Oh boy. How many cameras do you have over top of us?
All right, guys, back here on the Fox 5 Live Zone. We are 5 minutes away from the top of the hour. You are taking a live look at the press briefing room within the White House, where yet again, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt should make her way to that podium in about 5 minutes or so, but you typically know the deal. They run a tad bit late, and when that happens, we'll take you there live right here on the Live Zone. In the meantime, let's do a little celebrity dish, shall we, on a Tuesday, and joining us as he does each and every Tuesday, our Guy is back. Yeah, Media Royalty, a.k.a. the Media Prince, back here on the LZ. What's up, my friend?
How's it going? We are live in the zone. I'm really live outside, for real.
Yeah, Media Prince, that's a somewhat different background, but you are also busy, so I'm truly not surprised. Let's get to it. In this case, we're going to kick it off with, well, arguably one of the biggest divas of all time, Mariah Carey, now blasting the Grammys after being snubbed out of nominations for years, calling the award show and the statute overrated. She recently appeared on Pitchfork's Over Under YouTube series where celebrities weigh in on pop culture. Now, Mariah said that she's won only 5 Grammy Awards in her career, and the last time she won one was 16 years ago. Out of curiosity, Media Prince, do you know what song that happened to be?
16 years ago? Oh my
Take a guess.
Was that We Belong Together?
Wow, you were also good. Yeah, you got it right.
What? I'm a lamb. So I just got all my lamb points. So all the lambs that are watching, we just shouted, hooray, I knew. I figured that because that was the last time she actually attended the awards because she performed, I want to say she performed, what's that, Fly Like a Bird song? And hit that extreme high note that like took over the show. So I think that was honestly the last time we even saw her attend the awards too. So you know how Mariah Carey gets. She gets in her I don't know them mode. And right now, the Grammys, she doesn't know them.
Yeah. It's interesting. We talked about this earlier on Good Day DC. And one of the things that I said is that since that song, We Belong Together, I don't think she's really put forth a song that belongs in the Grammy category. What about you?
So I will say that she did have one more actually she had a few more #1 hits after that. She had the Don't Forget About Us that went #1 that deserved a Grammy. And she also had Touch My Body, which I think was a snub that she didn't get anything for that. Outside from that, she kind of like took a break from music and just allowed us to frolic during the Christmas time. So I think Mariah knew after that, when they didn't give the love they were supposed to give to Touch My Body, I think at that point she just was over it and didn't really care to even give it any more thought or fathom. And you know, this is Mariah Carey we're talking about. She's a legend. So if the legend is saying it's overrated, maybe we should think a little bit more into why she's saying that and probably get on board and see maybe she may be onto something. She might be onto something.
Well, I tell you one person who absolutely loves getting a Grammy, and that is none other than Taylor Swift. However, the next time she gets one, well, it might be because, well, let's say the Academy heard Any and All Things on a cassette tape. Did you hear about this, Media Prince? Her new album, The Life of a Showgirl, will be available via cassette tape. According to the most recent data available in 2023, nearly 437,000 cassettes were sold in the U.S. Leading the trend are so-called superfans who account for 18% of music listeners. So the big question here is, Media Prince, are you going to rush down to, I was going to say the record store, but do they even exist? And if you do, are you going to pick up her cassette tape?
To be quite honest, I don't even know where I'm going to play that. I haven't. Now, I am from the 90s, so I do know about the cassette. I remember the A side and the B side. I even broke a few of my mom's. I hope she's not watching. The cord would come out and I would try to reel it back in. So, but I think it's innovative. I don't know exactly what market still sells cassettes, but hey, this is the Swifties we're talking about. Someone's getting ready to bring cassette players back to the cars. So we might be witnessing is the start of a new innovation where we might start to see cassette players come back to the cars. And if we do that, we might have to just give a round of applause for Taylor Swift because she does things in such a organic way. But you also, if you pay attention to her career, she loves vintage. She loves the olden things. So she kind of finds her way because you see, she really made the vinyl wave really big. So of course, what's the next best thing? Cassette players.
Yeah. Hey, if you build it, they will come. In this case, if she makes it, they will play it. I think that's what we can leave it just at that. Media Prince, I got time for one more. In this case, this was happened right before I hopped on air, and it all surrounds, well, now former NBA player in DC fave John Wall. The veteran NBA point guard has officially announced his retirement, concluding a remarkable career defined by passion, skill, and perseverance. You may recall back in, what was it, 2010? Yeah, he went down as the #1 pick overall and became a 5-time NBA All-Star throughout his career. High five going out to him and job well done.
I think John Wall has just set the tone. And to be quite honest, if y'all are from the DMV, then I promise you it feels like John Wall has retired already before he retired, okay? Because the brother, if you are a frequent partier of Rose Bar, you would have been thought he retired because he's always in there. But honestly, kudos to him. I think he's left at his own terms. He's done magnificent things. He is able to garner the game in a way that a lot of players don't get this chance to. So he's walking away with a legacy that's going to be great and stand the test of time. So I'm excited to see what he does next. I believe, because we've had what's crazy is we were having this conversation over the weekend about certain players that we could see as coaches. And John Wall was at the top of the list. So now I'm excited to see which realm he is going to go in, because someone that great of his caliber and the connections he has, can he really just leave NBA all the way to the back burner? So I'm excited to see what new ventures will come from this retirement.
Yeah, when it comes to electrifying play, no one does it better and did it better than John Wall. We wish him well. We wish you well as well. Media Prince, we got to go. Joining us for an abbreviated version of Celebrity Dish. Always good to see you, my friend.
It's always good to be seen. We are live in the zone.
All right, guys. We are now 2 minutes past the top of the hour. We're going to take a quick break. Obviously, we are still awaiting White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt to approach the podium at the White House for the latest press briefing. We'll discuss all things politics. Madeline Somerville joins us yet again on the flip side of this break. We'll be right back.
Yesterday left how we figured that out to him. But that is his job basically the next few days. He had said after conclusion of yesterday's meeting that they all go to sort of formalize on paper what the plan is going to be, and then once that is done, that they will trilateral meeting. And then following that, they will have a trilateral meeting that we don't have a timeline right now for how long that's going to take. The Europeans said yesterday probably weeks, not months. President Trump is obviously continuing to light that fire and get things done. He referenced a conversation he had at the table yesterday in that multi-leader meeting, saying he was talking to one of the heads of state or individuals there, didn't specify who, and said, oh, okay, we'll regroup in a couple months or a month or so. And he said, a month. People are going to be dead in a month. 3,000 people will be dead in a month. That's just tonight. And so he is continuing to try the coalition of the willing, so to speak, into getting their act together, getting that package ready, and able to present to Zelenskyy so that he can in turn make decisions as he needs to make. I'm probably also going to get some questions today on DC crime. We had basically continuing pushback on the president's initiative in a crime in the city, and he was touting the success of that on social media and in his interview on Fox this morning. So I expect we'll get an update there.
All right, guys, back here on the Fox 5 Live Zone yet again, we are awaiting White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt to approach the podium to begin the White House press briefing. As we await for that, we are joined yet again by Madeline Somerville, political strategist and host of Maddie's Hot Takes. We call this round two. Madeline, always good to see you.
Round two, let's go. How are you, Guy?
Well, I got to tell you, it's a big round for, well, none other than Ukrainian President Zelenskyy and Russian President Vladimir Putin. At issue, bringing peace to that region. We have been discussing this and following this for quite some time. Obviously, really no serious movement since we last spoke with you an hour ago. The big question is, and that we all continue to ponder is, will this happen? And if it does happen, what in essence will Putin be held accountable? How will he be held accountable?
I think the thing that all of the Western allies are looking for, including Ukraine, is separation ideologically from Russia. And so that post that the president made earlier about NATO and about Ukraine not getting membership, I think that's going to be a tremendous sticking point for Ukraine because it might seem like a small concession, but in a way it's the whole ball game. People look at Crimea and they look at the different regions that have gone back and forth between the parties over the last 20, 30 years. And the problem is that it's not just about trade routes. It's not just about oil. It's not just about the economy. It's about an ideological battle that's occurring between the West and this Eurasian sort of belief system that exists in Russia. And so can this happen? I certainly hope so. But it seems like to me, if it does, it's going to be staving off the inevitable. If you listen to Putin talk, he uses phrases like New World Order. And so it seems like it's just a giant battle for top dog, and that any decision that's made is just going to stave off some problem in the future. So I hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah, well, I hope the press secretary, yet again, Caroline Leavitt, addresses just that when she approaches that podium any minute now. I want to bring it a little bit closer to home. Just a couple of minutes ago, we got a press release with regard to the Reverend Al Sharpton, founder and president of the National Action Network. We now know that he will deliver a crucial sermon at Howard University this upcoming Sunday. The topic of discussion, supporting D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser. According to the press release, the Trump administration continues its takeover of the city, citing a false spike in crime rates in the nation's capital. It looks like the mayor has several folks now coming to her aid.
They do. And actually, my mentor went to Howard, so I'll be really happy that I get to tell her that I talked about this today. But I'm glad that there are allies that are coming to aid Mayor Bowser, because here's the issue. Even if there are significant issues with crime in DC. The way that the president is going about this is not only illegal, it's going against what Republicans would want as advocates of states' rights, because it's an example of the federal government taking over smaller states, smaller governments, and that's the opposite of what Republicans usually want. And then I hope to put some context around this and remind people that this has been part of the Republican platform taking over DC for years, that they tried to defund DC in February to the tune of $1 billion to prevent police funding up to the tune of $200 million going to the police. This is, I mean, like I said, I'm happy for the police to have any help that they might need, but it frustrates me that the Trump administration is pretending like this isn't something that they wanted to do in the first place, and it makes it doubtful for me to hear that this isn't about an authoritarian takeover when you're not just coming forward and telling the truth about it.
Yet again, that rally spearheaded by the Reverend Al Sharpton set to get underway this upcoming Sunday on the campus of Howard University. Let's take it down to the state of Texas, the Lone Star State, where Texas House Democrats who fled their state to stall a Republican redistricting effort, well, they returned yesterday. That ended a 15-day holdout. It appears the Republicans now have a clear path to redraw the lines in that region. Last night, a Democratic Texas state representative spent the night on the Texas House floor in protest after refusing a Republican demand to be placed under watch of the State Department of Public Safety. Yet again, Madeline, this is a mess. Your take on it?
It is a mess, Guy. I was on a Zoom call yesterday with a Texas state rep and a state senator, and they were talking to us about what it felt like to be in this situation. And this was before the legislator that we know of had been locked in all night, staying there because she didn't want to be followed around by security and forced to do something against her will. So again, very, very messy. But one of the stats that I learned that I thought was very demonstrative is that with the way that the Republicans have drawn up the new maps, one white person's vote is equivalent to 3 Latino votes. One white person's vote is equivalent to 5 black person's votes. And so the only way that you can challenge votes, or the only way that you can challenge maps in the courts is basically under the Voting Rights Act and equal protection. I haven't seen it challenged any other way. And so if that's the truth, if that's how the maps are drawn, and like I said, I'm gonna give as much benefit of the doubt to both sides as possible. If that's true and that's how it's drawn, then they will have a legitimate course of action within court. They'll have a legitimate course to follow, because the point of the Voting Rights Act is that you can't dilute minority voting power.
Yeah, well, you know the saying, everything that happens in Texas happens to be bigger, and it's a big problem. Hopefully something that they can get to the bottom of very shortly. Hey, you made mention of Latino voters, and we know that according to a newly released poll, Republicans are making a very simple, perhaps mistake with regard to Latino voters. That study found that voters are not only, well, let's say, turning a sour face to the president, but also on his handling of key issues like immigration and the economy. Your response to that?
That makes sense to me. And it's actually unsurprising to me that Latino voters went Republican. The same thing actually happened with George Bush. Yes, Trump got 46% of the Latino vote, but so did George Bush. He got 44%. So it makes sense, because Latino voters tend to be more religious, which means that you tend to be more conservative. And so it's unsurprising that he was able to get that group of voters. And it's from just a cultural perspective, right? People who are here legally oftentimes will say, well, I came here legally, so I don't have a lot of sympathy for someone who didn't. And that's just anecdotal, right? Coming from experience when I've heard people say that. But I think that regardless of whether you have that perspective or not, and regardless of whether or not you're conservative, with all the footage that we've seen of the ICE officers who are tearing people off the streets with masks on, right? Whether or not that's the law, whether or not that's what they were sent there to do, it doesn't feel like America. It doesn't feel like what everyone signed up for. And as many people who come out on X or come out on social media to say, this is what I signed up for, there's probably 3 more who say that they didn't. Because, you know, the ones that, the squeaky wheels are the loudest, right? The ones who are making the noise are representing the whole group, but that doesn't mean the whole group feels that way. Yeah. And that matters when it comes to voting. So with what's going on in California, Texas, and Latino voters in general, if I were Republicans, I'd be really worried about the upcoming midterms.
Yeah. Madeline, yet again, we are awaiting the White House press briefing to get underway momentarily. We do see some activity, so we expect that to happen any minute now. This happens weekly, Madeline. Every week, we sit right here and we get a chance to watch the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, address the media. Obviously, a lot going on. You and I discussed Ukraine, Russia, the federalized police department right here in the nation's capital. We saw all things surrounding Texas and the mess that's going on down there. Anything in particular that you think the White House press secretary should address when she makes her way to that podium?
That's a great question. The things that really frustrate me are those that are not given context in the media, which is why I'm so grateful for the opportunity to come on and provide your audience with context, especially for folks in the DMV who are being impacted greatly by what's going on. And so what I'd really like for her to address with all of these very important issues specifically, rather than a separate one, right? I just want her to dig deeper onto these and explain the reasoning behind them, right? We want to know why you're doing the things that you're doing. If it's not because of crime, why is it, right? Or if it is because of crime, why did you try to defund DC and the police back in February? I want to know why the Russian flag is flying with the American flag on the recent tank that we saw. I want to get the details.
And that's exactly, perhaps, what you'll hear. This is none other than the White House press secretary.
Short of remarkable. We are now 3.5 years into the war between Russia and Ukraine, a brutal conflict that has claimed hundreds of thousands of Russian and Ukrainian lives and cost trillions of dollars. The weakness and incompetence of Joe Biden foolishly allowed the killing to start in the first place. Until President Trump returned to office in January, the bloody and broken Biden status quo was to endlessly force American taxpayers to fund Ukraine no matter the cost, no matter how long it takes, and no matter how many lives were lost. There is no denying that Biden's America Last foreign policy moved the world further away from peace. President Trump rejected that failed approach and instead, over the last 7 months, has relentlessly pursued peace throughout his second term. And thanks to President Trump's efforts, we finally have movement after years of deadly gridlock. On Friday, as you all know, many of you were there, President Trump hosted Russian President Vladimir Putin in Anchorage, Alaska, for a bilateral meeting. This was the first time President Putin has been to the United States since 2015, and the first time he has met with an American president in years. President Putin publicly confirmed what President Trump has said all along. The war between Russia and Ukraine never would have started in the first place if President Trump were in office. This was always obvious to any person with a shred of common sense. Just look at what took place during the last 4 administrations. Under George W. Bush, Russia invaded Georgia. Under Barack Obama, Russia took Crimea. Under Joe Biden, Russia invaded Ukraine. But under President Trump, Russia did not invade nor take anything. President Trump is the only president this century, Republican or Democrat, who has held Russia in check and ensured peace in Europe. That's because Russia has always greatly respected President Trump and his peace through strength foreign policy approach. But overall, the bilateral talks in Alaska were very productive, and multiple key points were agreed to between the two leaders that truly opened up the door for Phase 2 discussions, which took place yesterday here at the White House, within 48 hours of that meeting in Anchorage, I may add. As you all know, there were many European leaders here, as well as Ukrainian President Zelenskyy. They all traveled here to meet with President Trump to maintain the momentum and work toward a lasting peace. Across the board, every leader credited President Trump for his decisive leadership that has reignited the dialogue in hopes of finally bringing this war to a peaceful conclusion. 2 quotes in particular capture the progress that was made and the optimism moving forward. Finnish President Alexander Stubb said, "I think in the past 2 weeks, we've probably had more progress in ending this war than we have had in the past 3.5 years. Again, that is the president of Finland, a country that shares a border with Russia. That's what we call the President Trump effect. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte also summed it up well. Without President Trump, this deadlock with Putin would not have been broken. He is the only one who could do this. Following the encouraging conversations yesterday, President Trump spoke with President Putin by phone, and he agreed to begin the next phase of the peace process, a meeting between President Putin and President Zelenskyy, which would be followed, if necessary, by a trilateral meeting between President Putin, President Zelenskyy, and President Trump. As the president said, Vice President Vance, Secretary Rubio, and Special Envoy Witkoff will continue to coordinate with Russia and Ukraine to make this happen as soon as possible. It's very important to remember that before President Trump's landslide victory last November, there was no end in sight to this bloodshed. Now, there may finally be light at the end of the tunnel and an opportunity for lasting peace. That's because President Trump is the peace president, and American leadership is back on the world stage. It should not be lost on anyone in this room that world leaders are coming right here to Washington, D.C. for help. While previous presidents have traveled halfway around the world to apologize for America, President Trump stands up for America, and he has firmly restored America's status as the undisputed leader of the free world. However, one thing that has absolutely not changed is the media's negative and downright false coverage of President Trump and his foreign policy accomplishments. From the beginning of this entire process, much of the left-wing media has been actively rooting against the President of the United States in the pursuit of peace. Initially, the media ridiculously claimed that President Trump was somehow beholden to Russia for even agreeing to have a face-to-face discussion with President Putin inside of the United States. The media said President Trump was making a grave mistake by, quote, legitimizing Putin. They were aghast that President Trump would treat another world leader like a world leader. The media relentlessly attacked President Trump and claimed he suffered a, quote, major defeat for not immediately emerging with a final agreement, even though he said heading into that meeting, this was a meeting to listen and to understand how to move the ball forward. All weekend following those historic U.S.-Russia bilateral talks, we listened to clueless pundits on television in 7 months about peace. This is the same president, by the way, who brokered the Abraham Accords in his first term, on top of more than half a dozen other peace deals this year alone, as I just said. We also saw yesterday the president of Ukraine and all of the other major leaders of Europe fly across the Atlantic Ocean to meet President Trump at the White House because of the progress that was made, and that, if you ask the media, failed meeting, but it was not. It was highly productive and it was successful. This is why Americans' trust in the mass media is at a lowest point in more than 5 decades. Diplomacy is a delicate process, and instead of reporting the facts about what is happening here at this White House and what is happening between this president and other leaders around the world, many outlets in this room continue to try to actively undermine the president and sabotage the efforts towards peace. That is why I felt the need to set the record straight. In other news, on the home front, President Trump's efforts to make D.C. safe again are working. There have been a total of 465 arrests since the start of this operation on Thursday, August 7th. Last night, there were a total of 52 arrests, including the arrest of an illegal alien MS-13 gang member with convictions for DWI and drug possession. Thanks to President Trump's leadership and the outstanding work of both federal and local law enforcement, dangerous gang members like the one picked up last night will not be allowed on the streets of our nation's capital. Other arrests last night included assault with a deadly weapon for stabbing, parole violation for robbery, murder, outstanding warrant for attempted murder, assault on federal law enforcement officer, and felony assault. 4 more homeless encampments were also removed during yesterday's reporting period. To date, a total of 48 homeless encampments have been cleared in Washington, D.C. by multi-agency teams. MPD patrol units are actively working with city officials to locate and clear additional encampments and remove homeless residents off of Washington's streets. And despite fake narratives from the media, again, a significant number of the arrests have been in high-crime areas of D.C. In fact, nearly half of all of the non-illegal alien-related arrests have occurred in wards 7 and 8, the 2 wards that have the highest number of violent crime, as well as homicides and assaults with dangerous weapons last year. So while Democrats continue to coddle violent criminals, President Trump and this administration are focused on putting them behind bars and unapologetically standing up for the safety of law-abiding American citizens, and the White House will continue to provide all of you with the results of this operation in the days ahead. So with that, I will take your questions today. Here in our new media seat today, we have Jack Posobiec, who joined us in Anchorage, Alaska last week. Jack, thanks for being here. Why don't you kick us off?
Caroline, thanks so much. So a couple of questions regarding the status of these peace talks. Obviously, we saw the President and President Putin there in Anchorage. We saw the world leaders here yesterday with this summit. We've heard phrases like coalition of the willing. We've also heard Article 5-like guarantees. When it comes to the security guarantees, what is the current status of that? I know the President earlier today mentioned boots on the ground would be UK, France, Germany possibly, but unequivocally said no U.S. troops on the ground, but U.S. coordination. Can you elaborate on that, and what would the red lines be?
Sure. Well, you got to the heart of what I was going to say to all of you today on security guarantees, which is the President has definitively stated U.S. boots will not be on the ground in Ukraine, but we can certainly help in the coordination and perhaps provide other means of security guarantees to our European allies. The President understands security guarantees are crucially important to ensure a lasting peace, and he has directed his national security team to coordinate with our friends in Europe and also to continue to cooperate and discuss these matters with Ukraine and Russia as well.
Caroline, now have the Russians responded at all? I know we spoke with President Putin last night. What has been their response? Because we've heard some reports from the Kremlin and others saying they're unequivocally against NATO troops on the ground.
Well, look, the President continues to have these conversations with both leaders. Those conversations took place in Anchorage, Alaska, again yesterday with the Europeans and President Zelenskyy, and he has directed his team to come up with a framework for these security guarantees that can be acceptable to help ensure a lasting peace and end this war.
And then just last question real quick on this. Regarding some of the funding, we're hearing questions about another round of weapon sales or possibly a round of U.S. purchases of Ukrainian drones. Will that money be funded by the U.S. taxpayers? Are we finally going to see an end to the U.S. taxpayer-funded, seemingly endless mandate for these foreign wars?
Well, the President is very sensitive to the needs of the American taxpayer, and immediately upon entering office back in January, he made it very clear that we're not going to continue writing blank checks to fund a war very far away, which is why he came up with the very creative solution to have NATO purchase American weaponry, because it is the best in the world, and then to backfill the needs of the Ukrainian army and the Ukrainian people and their military. So that's the solution the President has came up with. We'll continue to see that forward. As for any additional sales, I'll have to defer you to the Department of Defense.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Jack. Kelly.
What has President Trump learned that tells him that Vladimir Putin would be willing to make a deal for him, for President Trump?
Well, the President has learned a lot, which is part of the reason he opened up this dialogue. The previous administration, who oversaw the beginning of this war, refused to talk. And President Trump has always said, in order to learn, in order to move the ball forward with diplomacy and towards peace, you have to have open dialogue. And so that's why the President has had several conversations by phone and, of course, an in-person meeting last Friday with President Putin. He also has talked to President Zelenskyy dozens of times, had him here at the White House yesterday, and he's understanding what both sides want, what both sides are going to have to give up. And he has always said, in order to get a good deal, both sides are going to have to walk away a little bit unhappy. So he continues to learn a lot throughout these conversations, which is why we've seen progress from both sides. And I would also just add, when it comes to learning and moving the ball forward, look at how both Russia and Ukraine have actually talked directly for the first time in many years, thanks to the efforts of this president and this administration.
Specifically for President Trump, though, what do you think Putin's motivation is to try to do something for President Trump, as opposed to just resolving the conflict?
I think, as I just spoke to in my opening remarks, Kelly, Russia and all countries around this world actually respect the United States again, and the president is using the might of American strength to demand that respect from our allies, our friends, our adversaries all around the world. And we've seen that not just lead to progress with Russia and Ukraine, but also we've seen it in the closing of 7 global conflicts around the world as well. We've seen it with the release of hostages in Gaza. You've seen it with the end of the conflict between India and Pakistan, which could have resulted in a nuclear war if we had not had a president who believed in the strength and the leverage that comes with the job of being the President of the United States of America. Rachel.
Thanks, Caroline. Heading into Alaska, a lot of the focus in the talk was on this trilateral meeting between these three leaders. Can you explain how this went from a trilateral meeting involving President Trump to now the focus being on this bilateral meeting without the president first?
Well, look, the president has spoken to both leaders about this, and both leaders have expressed a willingness to sit down with each other. And so our national security team will help both countries do that. Ultimately, the president has always said that there are areas of disagreement in this war that will have to be discussed and decided upon by these two countries. And so he wants these two countries to engage in direct diplomacy. He's said that from the very beginning, which is why he's agreeable to the idea of having President Zelenskyy and President Putin get together. And I understand accommodations for that meeting are underway. As soon as we hear more details, we'll be sure to let all of you know.
And just a quick follow-up. We know as of right now there is no ceasefire in place. We've seen Russia continue its attacks on Ukraine. What indications is the president getting from Putin that he wants to have this meeting with Zelenskyy soon?
Because he spoke to him directly yesterday.
And he expressed that
Haley,
sooner rather than later.
He spoke to that directly yesterday, and the president put that in his statement that he gave to all of you, the news media, knowing you'd be asking following that conversation in the effort of transparency. Haley.
Hey, thanks, Caroline. You made clear no U.S. boots on the ground. Is the president considering U.S. boots in the air as a form of a security guarantee?
Look, that was something the president mentioned on his interview this morning. It is an option and a possibility. I won't certainly rule out anything as far as military options that the president has at his disposal. I'll let him do that. I can tell you he's definitively ruled out boots on the ground. Sure.
Thanks, Caroline. Just about the possible venue for the talks. Can you confirm that Putin suggested Moscow as a venue for the bilateral talks? And if so, doesn't that indicate that Putin is perhaps not serious about this, that he's suggesting a venue that there's no way that Zelenskyy is going to go to?
Look, I'm not going to litigate the private conversations between the president and President Putin, aside from what the president himself has already spoken on. But I can tell you there are many options that are being discussed by our national security team right now with both parties.
Can you give us an indication of where?
I just told you we'll provide you details as soon as we can. Thank you for trying, though. Libby.
Thank you, Caroline. I wanted to ask about the National Guard troops. How is the White House coordinating with how they're being placed in D.C., what areas? And then also, how long should people here in the district anticipate the National Guard to be on the ground patrolling the streets?
I don't have a timeline for you, Libby, but we will keep you posted on that. I think the president, as you know, and this administration, he came to this briefing room with members of his cabinet to lay out the rationale and the reasoning for federalizing the National Guard here in Washington, D.C., and for our work with the Metropolitan Police Department to make our district safer. We've seen violent crime has taken the lives of far too many residents here in our nation's capital, and the president wants to make it safe again. And as for the coordination efforts, this interagency team is meeting and talking daily. In fact, there's a meeting taking place right now in the West Wing with members of the interagency task force to continue to discuss not just the National Guard deployment, but also how we can continue to remove public safety threats off of the streets of Washington, which, as the numbers I just showed you prove, they are doing every single night. I will just reiterate, 465 total arrests and counting since the start of this operation. I believe 11 or 12 days ago, I'll have to check the calendar, but those are pretty remarkable results. If not for this task force and their high level of coordination and the leadership of this president, there would have been 465 more violent criminals on the streets of this capital that you all live in every day. So I think we should all be very grateful for that. Stephen.
Thank you, Caroline. 3 questions about the D.C. crackdown.
Sure.
First, I was wondering if you could clarify something President Trump said. He mentioned getting rid of the slums where criminals live. Was he talking about tents or permanent residential buildings? And then the mayor has expressed an interest in clarifying how much of a focus illegal immigration enforcement is as part of this crackdown. Can you say anything about that?
Sure.
And third, any preview on the beautification?
3 questions. I'll try to answer all 3 of them pointedly for you. First, when it comes to what you said, and the president said, the slums of Washington, D.C., he's referring to the most dangerous communities, neighborhoods, and streets in this city where, unfortunately, violence has ravaged these communities and taken the lives of, again, far too many law-abiding D.C. residents. We know on July 5th of this year, just more than a month ago, a 3-year-old beautiful young girl was shot and killed in her car with her family in one of these communities, which is why there has been a surge, despite what many of you have been falsely reporting. And I believe it was the Washington Post who put out a map claiming it to be fact-based when it was just based on, I don't know, accounts that they've heard on the street, not actual statistics and data. So we went and reconfigured the numbers, and as I said, nearly half of all the non-illegal alien-related arrests have occurred in wards 7 and 8 in the District of Columbia, where we know, excuse me, there's the highest rate of crime. So we'll continue to do that. And what was your second question, Stephen?
Legal immigration, how much of a focus that is?
Yeah, look, I mean, the focus is to make D.C. safe and beautiful and to remove public safety threats and violent criminals from our streets. If federal law enforcement, with the help of the Metropolitan Police Department, come across illegal aliens, of course, we are going to abide by this administration's policy of law and order, and we are going to remove illegal criminals from our nation's capital. They will be detained and deported, just like they are in every other community across the country. Kristen.
First question is, whose idea was it to change the next steps from a trilateral to a bilateral meeting?
It was an idea that evolved in the course of the president's conversations with both President Putin, President Zelenskyy, and the European leaders yesterday. And as you saw, Kristen, with all of those European leaders leaving the White House, including the NATO Secretary General, they all agreed that this is a great first step. And it's a good thing that these two leaders are going to be sitting down together, and the president expects that to happen.
And how long is Trump willing to wait and operate in good faith for Putin to actually arrange a meeting before he intervenes?
Look, the president has put tremendous public pressure to bring this war to a close. He's taken actions, as you've seen, sanctions on India and other actions as well. He's made himself very clear that he wants to see this war end, and he has scoffed at the ideas of others that have been raised that we should wait another month before any meeting takes place. The president wants to move, and he wants to bring this war to an end as quickly as possible.
Just a clarification on something you said earlier about Putin agreeing to the meeting. The Kremlin seemed to indicate that Putin did not firmly agree to a bilateral. Did he agree to have a sit down with just Zelenskyy on the phone?
I can assure you that the United States government and the Trump administration is working with both Russia and Ukraine to make that bilateral happen as we speak. Sean.
Hey, if the point is to get everybody on the same page, why wouldn't Trump just take the call from Putin while the other leaders were in the room? He said it would be disrespectful to do that. But why is it disrespectful?
With all due respect, only a reporter from the New York Times would ask a question like that, Sean. The president met with all of these European leaders at the White House 48 hours after sitting down with President Putin on American soil. In fact, there was so much progress in the readout that was given to these European leaders immediately following his meeting with President Putin that every single one of them got on a plane 48 hours later and flew to the United States of America. And if I could just read for all of you some of the statements from those European leaders yesterday, you had President Zelenskyy himself saying it was a very good conversation. It was really good. We spoke about very sensitive points. The Secretary General, Mark Rutte, it was the president, only because of the president, that this deadlock was broken, but with President Putin by starting a dialogue. So these leaders, who this war is in their backyard, are very grateful that the president took that call and that he was there to provide them with a readout of Russia's thinking on this, something that was not done by the previous administration at all. Catherine.
Thank you. Is the White House looking at Budapest as a possible location?
I'm not going to confirm or deny locations. We'll provide you with details as soon as we can.
Just following up on Kristen's question, I understand that the White House is working and allies are working to make this meeting happen, but did Putin promise to do a meeting with Zelenskyy, a direct meeting, in the coming weeks?
He has, and I just answered that question for you. Franco.
Thanks. I just want to clarify. So you are saying that President Trump is considering U.S. pilots and U.S. aircraft potentially supporting European or Ukrainian forces?
The president spoke to that himself this morning when he called into Fox and Friends, and I would defer you to his answer. You can read it directly yourself.
In addition, can I ask, no boots on the ground, Steve Witkoff's talking about Article 5-like security guarantees. Can you talk about what other Article 5-like security guarantees that are being considered if it's not boots on the ground?
These are very sensitive diplomatic discussions that are currently taking place literally as we speak. So I will leave it to the national security team, and I'll leave it to the president to have those private discussions with these leaders as we try to bring this war to an end.
And can I ask one
Mary
more?
Margaret, go ahead.
Thanks, Caroline. Two questions, if that's okay. So on these meetings, I know you said that the trilateral will take place if necessary. Do you think that we might not need the trilateral and that Zelenskyy and Putin might come to this conclusion on their own? And then as a follow-up, I know the president said on Fox News this morning that he's partially seeking peace in order to get to heaven. Was he joking, or is there spiritual motivation behind his peace deals here?
I think the president was serious. I think the president wants to get to heaven, as I hope we all do in this room as well. Annie.
Thanks, Caroline. I'm just shifting gears to the Department of Justice for a minute. Can you walk us through why another deputy FBI director was named? Does Trump have any displeasure with how the FBI has been being run to date? And then I have a question about the antitrust division.
No, Andrew Bailey is extremely qualified. As you know, he's been serving with honor as the Attorney General of Missouri, and he's been brought on as another set of very credible and experienced hands to work alongside the current Deputy Director, Dan Bongino, under the leadership of the Director, Kash Patel, and the Attorney General, Pam Bondi. And the FBI has been doing a tremendous job. We've seen their agents out on the streets as part of this interagency task force here in Washington. But the crime that they've been stopping here in Washington, they've been doing this for 7 months all across the country. In fact, there's been 19,000 arrests by the FBI nationwide. That's more than double last year in the same time period. Of those, 1,600 arrests were for violent crimes against children. 4,000 child victims have been rescued by this FBI under this current leadership. 1,000 arrests from investigations of foreign terrorist organizations. There's been 1,500 kilos of fentanyl seized. 6,300 kilos of meth have been seized, and 3 of the top 10 most wanted have been arrested so far. Not a single one of the individuals on the top 10 most wanted list were arrested under the previous administration. We've arrested 3 in 7 months. So when you're actually working and enforcing law and order, you need all hands on deck. And so we look forward to welcoming Andrew Bailey to this new post. Jackie.
I have a quick question about Roger Alfred, who's a former DOJ official. He gave a speech in Aspen yesterday where he said that senior DOJ aides are cutting deals with favored lobbyists. I'm wondering if the president has any concerns at all with the way the antitrust division is working.
I have no idea who that individual is. I don't know why he made those comments. I don't know what basis he's making those comments on. My instinct tells me it's not true, but we will definitely look into them and I'll get you a response.
Thank you, Caroline.
Jackie.
Thanks, Caroline. Since the president often says that this war would not have started if he were in office, and
True.
and Putin confirmed that.
It's true. Do you accept that as true? The European leaders do.
Well,
and President Putin himself said that, by the way.
He did say that. The question I have, though, is what is the president going to do to ensure that these security guarantees last beyond him into the time when he is no longer president? And does that have to involve Congress at all?
Well, he understands the need for that, which he spoke to yesterday. And what's he going to do? It's why he's engaging in so many talks and so many conversations with both sides of this war with our European allies. It's why on the way home from Anchorage, Alaska, very late at night, when I know many of you on the press plane were sleeping and many staff were sleeping, the president himself was still awake at 2 o'clock in the morning talking to European leaders and NATO about how we can ensure a lasting peace and bring this conflict to an end. He has expended an incredible amount of time, energy, and effort into bringing this war to an end, and he remains determined to do that.
Also, can
Go
I ask
ahead.
you about the
Go ahead.
Thank you, Caroline.
DC crime?
Sure, Jake, and then to your right.
All right. Thank you, Caroline. Which of the half-dozen peace deals that the president's pulled off would you say he's the most proud of? And then I have another question.
That's a good question, Jake. I'll leave that to the president to answer. I think he's proud of all of the peace deals that he's been able to achieve. You saw the president of Armenia and the head of Azerbaijan both at the White House just a couple of weeks ago. The president, I know, very much enjoyed spending time with them and helping to bring that conflict to an end. He very much enjoyed his time with leaders of Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo in the Oval Office, talking to them about bringing that decades-long war to an end. India and Pakistan. He used trade in a very powerful way as leverage to bring that conflict to an end. So I know he's very proud of all of these achievements, and I know he's very honored to serve as the President of the United States and to restore peace around this world. Go ahead.
So you mentioned Armenia and Azerbaijan. That's a conflict that, I spent time in the Southern Caucasus covering that. And, a conflict of over 30 years, and he resolved it in just a couple of months.
Mm-hmm.
Are there other conflicts that the president's working on right now that are off the radar screen that we should be tracking?
In fact, there are many. The State Department is always working around the clock under the leadership of Secretary Rubio and keeping the president apprised of conflicts that are bubbling up all over the world. But of course, as you all know, as we've talked a lot about in this briefing, he's spending a lot of time right now on ending this war in Russia-Ukraine, and of course the conflict in Israel and Gaza, which he wants to see come to a close as well. Sure, go ahead.
So the president says that he's starting a movement to eliminate mail-in voting, but states administer elections, not federal authorities. So can you provide any more details about how the White House plans to eliminate that?
The White House continues to work on this, and when Congress comes back to Washington, I'm sure there will be many discussions with our friends on Capitol Hill and also our friends in state legislatures across the country to ensure that we're protecting the integrity of the vote for the American people. And I think Republicans generally and the president generally wants to make it easier for Americans to vote and harder for people to cheat in our elections. And it's quite mind-boggling that the Democrat Party could stand in opposition to common sense. He wants to ensure election integrity. There were great efforts that were made in 2024. I won't get ahead of myself for Hatch Act reasons to get ahead for the next election, but I can assure you this is a priority for the president. Go ahead.
If I could just follow up on your comments about Gaza.
Sure.
There was a ceasefire proposal put forward by both Qatar and Egypt. Hamas accepted it on Monday. Israel has yet to officially weigh in. I'm wondering if the U.S. was at all involved in it, if it's supportive of it, and whether or not the president believes Israel should accept it.
I don't think it's a coincidence that Hamas accepted this proposal after the President of the United States posted a very strong statement about this conflict on Truth Social yesterday. I would refer you back to that statement. As for this proposal that Hamas has now accepted, the United States continues to discuss it, and I'll let the President weigh in on it definitively. You're welcome. Sure.
Can you describe the President's perspective on taking a stake in Intel in exchange for federal grants? And is this are we expecting to see the White House make similar arrangements with other semiconductor companies and manufacturing companies?
Well, the president, he's been very clear about the need to reshore manufacturing that's critical to our national and economic security. That is especially in regards to chips and semiconductors, which is why the president has initiated the Commerce Department to conduct a study on semiconductors, a Section 232 investigation, so we can ultimately implement tariffs. And it's why our export license requirements remain in place as well. As for this 10% government stake deal, the Department of Commerce continues to work on it. I know Secretary Lutnick is working on it and ironing out the details, but the president wants to put America's needs first, both from a national security and economic perspective. And it's a creative idea that has never been done before to ensure that we're both reshoring these critical supply chains while also gaining something of it for the American taxpayer. You're welcome. Emily.
Thanks, Caroline. I wanted to ask about the 3 U.S. warships that are being sent to Venezuela, and there's 4,000 Marines on board. Are you looking at possibility of boots on the ground there?
What I will say with respect to Venezuela, President Trump has been very clear and consistent. He's prepared to use every element of American power to stop drugs from flooding into our country and to bring those responsible to justice. The Maduro regime is not the legitimate government of Venezuela. It is a narco-terror cartel. In Maduro, it is the view of this administration, is not a legitimate president. He is a fugitive head of this cartel who has been indicted in the United States for trafficking drugs into the country. And with that, I will leave you all, and we will see you later, if not tomorrow, and I look forward to taking more of your questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Caroline. Thank you.
All right, there you have it. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt addressing the meeting. The press secretary touching on a number of topics, stating that we now finally can see the light at the end of the tunnel with regard to the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. She also stated that President Trump, in essence, is the peace president with regard to what's happening locally and the crackdown on crime. She said that, according to the president, it is truly working. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back. about we talk weather, shall we? With this guy, Tucker Barnes, joining us
What's
right here on the
happening?
Go. What's up, my friend?
Hey, good to see you.
Same here.
Yeah. What do you think of the weather? You like an early fall preview?
It's different. It's a little. It was a little dreary today for the most part.
No, it still is dreary.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the story for the afternoon. So we'll hop right into the weather together, and what you see is what you get for the morning, the noon hour, and later this afternoon tonight.
Okay.
A lot of overcast skies, a lot of cool temps. I will say this, it is a big change up and a very fall-like feel out there early this morning and during the midday hours, and that will continue for the next couple days. East-northeast wind at 13. We're getting our winds off the ocean, Guy, and that is pumping in cooler air for the next couple of days. In fact, this entire week, our temperatures are going to be below normal. You ready for this? Low to mid 70s this afternoon, and maybe a couple sprinkles or showers. But our average high temperature this time in August is 88 degrees, so we're well below average, almost 15 degrees below average. Been raining down at the beaches first half of the day. Still some shower activity lingering down there, and you can see the clouds just parked across the region. They're not going anywhere today. It's what we call CAD, cold air damming.
Wow, that's new. Okay.
Yep, and so winds off the ocean, high pressure up north of Maine, and it's just pushing cool maritime airflow into the mid-Atlantic, and this is the result. Cloud cover, cool temperatures, and a couple of showers, a little drizzle out there.
Okay.
All right, so we do it again for another day. Low to mid 70s later today. I know what you're thinking. Well, I don't even care if you're thinking about it or not. That's Hurricane Aaron, and latest is it's actually lost some of its intensity the last 24 hours. Winds are now 110. It's a Category 2 hurricane. If you look on the northerly side of it, see the gray rather than the bright colors?
Yeah.
That is what we call wind shear. So what's happening is the dry air is working into the system, and that's weakening the system for the time being.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a great thing. So it's no complaints there, but it's losing a lot of its structural integrity. And we'll see if it's able to regain strength, but the official forecast keeps it at a Category 2 for the rest of today. It will make its closest pass to our region early Thursday morning during Thursday afternoon. And at that time, we will have gusty winds out at the beaches, probably 40 to 50 miles an hour, and pretty good storm surge. We'll have several cycles of high tides along the bay and up the Potomac where we may have some flooding issues. So we'll have to watch that. But as far as direct impacts, we may get a little breezy around here Thursday afternoon as the storm passes, but we will not get any rain or any dangerous tropical weather locally. The beaches will get some tropical storm conditions late Wednesday into the day on Thursday. Behind the hurricane, it gets beautiful Friday and Saturday, some very, very nice August weather. And it looks dry through most of the weekend. There may be a late day storm on Sunday.
It amazes me how far out to sea the hurricane is, and yet we're still feeling the effects of it.
It's amazing. Yeah, I mean, these guys are, they're global beasts for a reason.
Sheesh. All right. Tucker Barnes with all things weather right here in the Live Zone. Thanks, Tucker. Hey, guys, if you haven't already done so, make sure you download the Fox Local app. That way you can take that forecast with you on the go. Not only can you take that with you on the go, you can take Do You Like It or Not with this guy. Chris joining us right here on the Live Zone. What's up, my friend?
If you scan that QR code, you get to be a part of the show. How easy is that?
Easy as 1, 2, 3.
It's the best. Now, I'm going to actually share a little behind the scenes.
Okay.
Tomorrow night, Wednesday, one of our most loyal Do You Like It or Not viewers who has joined us in the Lion Zoom room every night, going to be right here in studio with me.
Oh, that's
instead,
awesome.
Because that's what this show does. That's what we are. We're all about finding out new talent, new voices, and then sharing them with the DMV. So
yeah.
Allison's going to join me live right here
That's so
in
cool.
studio tomorrow to be my guest host. Now, this was a story that I planned on I'm putting together tonight's show still. I planned on talking about this one yesterday. I ran out of time, so it will be back tonight.
All right.
It's restaurant week here in the DMV. We talked about that. Obviously, this is a time of year when a lot of restaurants want diners to come join them, spend some money, try their food, and maybe you'll learn a new favorite restaurant or two. However, there's apparently a trend happening in restaurants right now, and it's not just bad tipping, and it's not just not drinking. According to the San Francisco Chronicle, more and more people are showing up to restaurants and bringing their own food.
What?
Right, exactly. Kind of shocking. They have cited examples of people coming into a pizza place with their own toppings. They cited examples of people coming into a pizza place with pizza from a separate pizza place.
That's not
They
cool.
cited an example of a woman who pulled a rotisserie chicken out of her bag.
No.
And started putting it on her salad because she was at a no-meat restaurant. I was shocked. Reading this, my jaw was literally wide open because I could not believe. I mean, I guess I shouldn't be shocked at the audacity of people, but then again, every so often. So what was interesting was the writer of this article then put together a little handy PSA for people of when it is okay to bring your own food and when it is not. Take a look.
So last week I wrote about how the hottest new trend in Bay Area dining seems to be bringing your own food to restaurants. I received a lot of questions from readers, and I decided to put together a handy little diagram to answer the question, can I bring my own food to a restaurant? Let's begin. Are you an infant? If yes, enjoy your pouch. Do you have a dietary restriction? If yes, is it an allergy? Do you have celiac disease? I would say call ahead. Say you want to bring a gluten-free bun to a place, order a hamburger, put it on your own gluten-free bun. A restaurant owner I talked to said, actually, he really appreciates this because it shows that you want to support his business when he might not be able to make an accommodation for you. Is it a religious thing? Maybe you keep kosher. Maybe your cousin is having her rehearsal dinner at a non-kosher restaurant. Again, call ahead. You might be able to bring your own meal in. Are you trying to get shredded for summer? Are you really interested in macros? Are you counting all your proteins that you're consuming? That's not okay. You cannot bring your meal prep to a restaurant. You can't ask them to put double.
Okay, so you saw her go through some of those examples. I love that she led with, are you an infant? Then yes, it's okay. Basically any other time. No, I did think it was interesting, especially for the food allergies or religious reasons. That is, you know, my father-in-law has celiac disease, and so we always look at menus ahead of time to find out whether there will be something on there for him. If we could call and say, hey, can we just bring our own roll and then he can order a hamburger, that would make the process very easy, but of course there's also issues of like cross-contamination. Bringing food into a restaurant is also major health code violation.
You think?
For a lot of places, so just keep that in mind before you do it. Now there was one part in her little PSA, I cut it off before we got there, but she calls it the condiment carve-out.
Ooh.
And she says, okay, this is not producer Chris, this is the author of this article, San Francisco Chronicle, food writer, says it is okay to bring your own condiments.
Yes.
If you have a little bottle of hot sauce in your bag.
Beyonce does it.
Yeah, that's right. Then it is okay to bring it in and use it. I thought that was interesting as well because I never really thought about it before, but she said especially in a city like Paris where you will not find hot sauce on any table whatsoever type of a thing, the way you would here in the United States, then it is okay. But I'm a little fascinated by this one, and I'm very curious to see what the Lion Zoom Room will say about it tonight. If anyone thinks about, you know, because, and I'm not going to call anybody out here for a second, but, you know, we know the Diva Chef keeps in excellent shape, and she trains for a lot of major competitions.
Yeah.
And I have to imagine there are times where if a friend invites her out to dinner, she'll probably just have to say no.
Oh my gosh, I didn't think about that.
She can go, unless they have something on the menu that fits her strict diet regimen.
Yeah.
But don't bring your own food, people. Don't bring your own food to a restaurant. What was curious was when I went through the comment section, some people said, look, if you're ordering something from them anyway, you're spending money in their restaurant, but if they can't accommodate you, isn't it okay if you just want to kind of support them and do your own thing at the same time? It's a real gray area.
I think it's tacky. I mean, why would you do something like that other than to the point, yeah, you want to eat your food as well, but in that case, why not just stay at home? And why put yourself in that position where folks like you and I are going to talk about you? I know. So I wouldn't do that. Now, the condiments thing, oh, I'm all in all the way. We can go to war on that one.
I guess I just never really thought about it, so I don't have a major issue with it. However, it does always kind of go back to that one thing, which was like, well, try it first. Like, try it first, and then if you still think it needs it, maybe you can add it. But like, I was recently at a restaurant that had I just got a plain breakfast sandwich. Could have used some hot sauce.
But real quick, someone that I was dining with, I remember we were eating steak somewhere. There was a CVS right down the street. They got up, walked to the CVS to grab some A1 sauce, and then came. Now that to me was somewhat of a violation. So I guess it's partial.
I get everyone, you know, different strokes for different folks.
Yeah.
But I have to imagine at a certain point, the chef might take that one a little bit personally too.
All right. Well, folks, if you haven't already
Yeah.
done so, hold up that QR card one more time for the folks. There
That's
you
right.
go.
This is
wanna
how
take
you
part?
can join the Lions Zoom room, and if we like you, maybe you'll end up standing right here next to me too, just like Allison will be on Wednesday night. But tune in tonight. Tony P will be with us live.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, we like all of you all, and we
Yeah,
like
we're
for
gonna
you
get to the bottom of that. I don't know if you've been on his social media, but he was on stage at the Ben Rector concert at the Anthem the other night. Ugh, that kid.
Hey, folks, if you haven't already done so, download the Fox Local app. You see it right there on your screen. Don't forget YouTube as well. We're back tomorrow. The Take now on Fox 5.